It's 1:58 a.m., the kind of hour where time feels thin. The dispatch center hums softly around you. Fluorescent lights, computer fans, the distant murmur of other operators guiding strangers through the worst nights of their lives. You've been here 6 years. Long enough to stop reacting to screaming. Long enough to separate panic from performance. Long enough to know that most emergencies are over before help even arrives. Your coffee is cold. Your back aches. 3 more hours until shift change. You roll your neck once. Then the line lights up. Incoming call. Mobile. Unregistered. You click in. 911, what's your emergency? Breathing answers you. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just quiet, unstable breathing. Like someone trying not to cry. You adjust your headset slightly. Hello, I need you to speak to me. A whisper. He's in the house. Your spine straightens automatically. You don't feel adrenaline anymore. Not like you used to. Now it's something colder. Focus. Okay, stay with me. What's your address? She gives it between breaths. You type quickly. The map loads. Suburban neighborhood, 2-story home, quiet street. You dispatch units immediately. Closest patrol car, 9 minutes out. 9 minutes is unbearable. What's your name? Emily. Young. There's a tremor in her voice that tells you she's trying very hard to sound braver than she feels. Emily, where are you right now? In my closet. You picture it. Dark. Shoes pushed aside. Phone screen lighting up her face. Is he armed? A pause. Then, yes. Your jaw tightens. Do you know him? Silence stretches. Then, it's my dad. There it is. The cases that don't make the news the same way. You lower your voice, steady and controlled. Okay, listen carefully. Is he in the same room as you? No, he's downstairs. You hear something faint through the phone. A drawer opening. Wood scraping. You begin typing additional notes for responding officers. Possible firearm. Domestic. Minor female. Your supervisor glances toward you. You don't look back. You keep your tone smooth. Emily, has he hurt you before? Long silence. You don't push. Silence sometimes says more than words. He's been different, she whispers. Different. That word again. Always different. Drinking? You ask gently. Yes. You nod to yourself. It fits. It always fits. You hear footsteps now. Slow. Measured. Not stumbling. Not drunk enough to be careless. The steps pause. Then continue. You feel it in your chest before your brain processes why. That rhythm. That calm pace. You've heard it tonight. You just don't know from where. Emily, you whisper, stay very quiet. Officers are coming. How long? You check the screen. 7 minutes. You lie. Very soon. The footsteps stop. Silence fills the house. Then, a man's voice. Soft. Controlled. Emily? Your fingers freeze above the keyboard. Your stomach tightens. You know that voice. You don't recognize it like you recognize a friend. You recognize it like you recognize a song you heard earlier on the radio. Familiar. Too familiar. Your brain flips backward. 3 hours ago. Another call. Another girl whispering from behind a locked bathroom door. Another man saying, "Sweetheart, I just want to talk." Your pulse spikes. The same tone. The same softness. Not angry. Not shouting. Calm. That earlier call ended badly. You swallow hard. Emily, you whisper urgently, "Is anyone else in the house?" No. The man's footsteps begin climbing stairs. Slow. Deliberate. Not searching. He knows where she is. Your screen flashes. Units now 5 minutes out. 5 minutes. You hear a bedroom door open. A pause. Then, closet hinges creak faintly through the phone. Emily gasps. The phone shifts. You hear movement. Fabric rustling. A small cry. Then silence. The audio goes sideways but doesn't disconnect. You hear breathing. Not hers. His. Steady. Controlled. Then he picks up the phone. You hear the subtle shift of the microphone. And then, you again. Every muscle in your body locks. The room feels smaller. You don't answer immediately. Your training screams at you to stay neutral. Sir, you say carefully, officers are on their way. He exhales slowly. You said that earlier tonight. Your heart begins hammering. He's confirming it. Same man. Different house. You weren't fast enough, he continues calmly. Your throat tightens. What happened earlier, you ask. He ignores the question. You have a very calming voice, he says instead. You make them feel brave. The dispatch room fades around you. Your entire world narrows to the sound of his breathing. Where is Emily, you demand quietly. She's here. You hear her muffled sob. Alive. For now. Sirens faint in the distance. He hears them too. His breathing changes slightly. You people interfere too much, he says. Family problems are private. You've heard this logic before. Ownership disguised as protection. Sir, you say steadily, hurting her will only make this worse. A small chuckle. You think this is about hurting her? Your mind races. Then what is it about? A pause. A shift in his tone. It's about respect. Your stomach drops. And suddenly you remember. The first call tonight. The girl. His niece. She said something before the line went dead. He doesn't like when we embarrass him. Your pulse roars in your ears. Was the girl earlier your niece? You ask carefully. Silence. Then, yes. There it is. Confirmation. 2 houses. 2 girls. 1 man. Sirens louder now. 3 minutes out. Why did you call earlier? You ask. He breathes into the phone. I didn't call. Your blood runs cold. She did. The niece. She called you. And now, so did Emily. You feel something shift inside you, a pattern forming. He didn't hunt strangers. He controlled family. And when they resisted, he corrected them. You think you're saving them, he says softly. But you just make them disobedient. The sirens are close. He hears them clearly now. His voice tightens for the first time. You make them think they have options. You don't respond. Because he's not talking to Emily anymore. He's talking to you. And then he says something that changes everything. I almost didn't come here tonight. Your breath catches. I wasn't gonna, he continues. But after the call earlier, I realized something. A pause. You needed to understand. Your hands start shaking. Understand what? You needed to hear it. The sirens are outside the house now, officers shouting faintly. His breathing grows heavier. You lean forward, heart slamming. Sir, put the weapon down. He whispers into the phone one last time. You're part of this now. And then the line goes dead. Not static, not a gunshot. Just silence. A clean disconnect. For half a second you think maybe the signal dropped. Maybe the phone slipped. Maybe. Then the radio on your desk erupts. Units on scene. Your heart is pounding so hard it feels mechanical. You switch to the live police channel. Boots hitting pavement. Car doors slamming. Front door locked. Rear perimeter covered. You're standing without realizing it. Your supervisor says your name, but it sounds far away. Possible firearm inside, an officer says into the radio. You grip the edge of the desk. Make entry. The crash of a door being forced open echoes faintly through the channel. Your lungs won't expand fully. Police, show me your hands. Chaos. Shouting. Movement. Then, a single gunshot. Not through the phone this time. Through the police channel. Someone yells, "Shots fired!" Your entire body goes cold. Another officer shouts, "Suspect down!" You stop breathing. Second stretch. Victim located. A pause that feels like a lifetime. Victim alive. The room exhales. You don't. You can't. Female minor, conscious, minor injuries. Your knees nearly give out. Emily is alive. Alive! But something about it doesn't feel like relief. Weapon recovered. Scene secure. Your headset feels heavier now. You slowly sit back down. Your hands are trembling uncontrollably. Your supervisor squeezes your shoulder. Good work. Good work. The words feel hollow. Because he said something before the line died. You're part of this now. That wasn't panic. That wasn't rage. That was intention. An officer's voice cuts back in. Dispatch, we've got multiple photographs in the basement. Your stomach tightens. Clarify. Looks like surveillance. Different houses. Different girls. Your blood drains from your face. Different girls. Not two. More. A cold understanding settles over you. This wasn't escalation. This was rehearsal. You replay the earlier call in your head. The niece whispering. The same tone. The same calm. He wasn't improvising. He was studying. And somehow, you were part of the pattern. 2 hours later, you're still at your desk. Statement taken. Audio flagged. Police want copies of both calls. You listen back. You don't want to, but you do. His voice fills your headset again. Calm. Measured. You have a very calming voice. You notice something you missed before. When he first picked up the phone, he wasn't surprised. He said, "You again." Not, "Who is this?" Not, "911." You again. Which means, he was expecting you. Your chest tightens. You pull the earlier call. The niece. You scrub through the audio. There. The moment she whispers, "I'm calling 911. There's movement in the background. A door opening. And then, his voice faintly in the distance. "Who are you talking to?" He heard the call. He knew someone was on the line. And yet, he still spoke. He still engaged. He wasn't afraid of being recorded. He wanted it recorded. A chill runs down your spine. You rewind again. The first call ended with screaming, and then silence. But not a gunshot. No confirmed cause of death yet. You call over to the detective assigned. "Was the niece?" He interrupts. "She didn't make it." The words hit like blunt force. "She died before units arrived." You swallow. "And the father?" The detective pauses. "Different address." Your brain struggles. "Different father?" "Yes." The room tilts slightly. 2 houses. 2 different fathers. Same voice. That's impossible. Unless your throat tightens. Was the suspect at Emily's house her biological father? The detective hesitates. "No." Your pulse spikes. He was an uncle, visiting. The air leaves your lungs. The same uncle. Moving between houses. Family access. Authority. Control. He wasn't reacting to calls. He was moving through a list. And each time someone dialed 911, he heard you. You close your eyes briefly. You make them feel brave. He didn't hate you. He blamed you. You gave them resistance. You gave them an option. And that made you a variable. 3 days pass. You're told to take leave. Mandatory. Psych evaluation required. You sit in a quiet office across from a licensed therapist. She asks how you're feeling. You almost laugh. How are you feeling? Like your voice carries weight now. Like somewhere out there, someone learned its tone. You go home. You don't sleep much. When you do, you hear breathing through a phone line. On the fourth night, your personal phone rings. Unknown number, 2:03 a.m. Your stomach drops. You let it ring twice. 3 times. It stops. A voicemail notification appears. Your hands shake as you press play. There's no greeting, no introduction, just breathing. Slow, measured. Then, a whisper. You sound tired. Your blood turns to ice. That's not possible. The uncle is dead. You heard the report yourself. Self-inflicted gunshot wound. Dead at scene. You replay the voicemail. It's distorted. Could be anyone. Could be nothing. But then, a second message arrives. Text. From the same unknown number. You shouldn't make them brave. Your heart feels like it's collapsing inward. You stare at the screen. It buzzes again. You're part of it now. The same sentence. The same words. Your breathing becomes uneven. You check the news. Nothing new released publicly. No details about the recordings. No detail about what he said to you. Only law enforcement would know that. Or someone who listened. Someone close enough. You feel something horrible click into place. What if the uncle wasn't acting alone? What if the surveillance photos weren't trophies, but research? And what if the calls weren't interruptions? They were auditions. You grab your work phone and dial the detective. He answers groggily. Did you release the audio? No. Has anyone else heard it? Just internal. You swallow hard. I just received a voicemail. Silence on the other end. What did it say? You hesitate. Then tell him. There's a long pause. That number's probably spoofed, he says carefully. Probably. That word does nothing to comfort you. After you hang up, your phone buzzes again. Another text. You care too much. Your hands are ice. You don't respond. You don't breathe. Then the final message arrives. We're listening too. You stare at it. And for the first time, you understand what he meant. You weren't just the operator. You were the witness. And someone out there wants you to keep listening. Because the thing about crossing into someone's worst moment is that sometimes you don't get to leave it. Your phone buzzes again. Incoming call. Unknown number. 2:17 a.m. The same time Emily called. Your thumb hovers over the screen. If you answer, you step back into it. If you don't, someone else might. It rings again, and again. And then you press accept. You don't say 911. You don't say anything at all. You just listen. Breathing answers you. Slow. Patient. Waiting.